Hello everyone, I am the storyteller, and tonight I am here just to help you relax, to drift off to sleep by the sound of the waves, like the whispers of old souls. I know you have come to this video not just to hear the story, but also to find a deep, peaceful sleep. But before we begin, please gently like the video and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to tell you strange stories under the dim moonlight. Where are you from? And what time is it where you live? Just relax. Let your body relax. Put all your worries down by your pillow. Let me take you into a world of mysteries where the wind and the waves mingle, and unsolved mysteries are waiting to be told. Are you ready? The selfie of Dorian Gray. Picture this. Dorian Gray, 25, gorgeous bachelor of the Brighton, gay scene handsome, F Queen slay. Picture his blazing blue eyes, set above aquiline nose and a rosebud pout of a mouth, cheeks ready to blush under the lick of glitter from a makeup brush, deep gold locks styled to perfection, forehead wide and empty as a summer sky, beauty not brains image as everything skin deep. Picture this. Dorian perched on the sleek leather and chrome of a bar stool in the poison ivy, margarita in one hand and phone in the other. Twin totems of the god of the gay bar. Picture his thumb hitting the camera app. Muscle memory leads him there always, and hovering now over the shutter button. Picture him pausing for a fragment of time to check the image on the phone screen. It is, as always, empty perfection. Click. There it is. The button is pressed. The shutter closes. The selfie is taken. And all around him, life continues in the poison ivy. The disco ball spins. Lady Gaga roars through over-amplified speakers. A drag queen at the bar wipes lipstick and white wine from a red twist of a mouth. But for Dorian Gray, life has stopped. Here, now, in this moment, the moment the selfie was taken. Live in the moment. Look good, feel good. Self-love. Because as he licks the salt rim of his margarita glass from perfectly glossed lips, Dorian realizes that he has taken the best selfie ever. What is it about this selfie that makes it so exquisite? Is it the background of dancers blurring to hot whirls of color? Is it the shards of light from the disco ball falling like a shower of diamonds across the face? No, it is the face itself, caught at the very moment of its blooming, like a young rose, beautiful. Dorian knows, the instant he sees the selfie, that there, right there in front of him, swimming in a million pixels, is the great truth he's searched for his whole life. Beauty. What would you like? The barman asks, plucking an olive from a discarded martini glass and popping it into his lipsticked mouth. I'd like, says Dorian, I'd like it if this selfie aged instead of me. You what? The barman hollers over Gaga's jagged vocals. I'd like another margarita, Dorian says. But Dorian's wish came true. Picture this. Years later, Dorian is flicking through his phone when up pops the selfie. Throwback. Memories. 10-year challenge. Picture Dorian, 35, and still on the cusp of blooming like a young rose, locking eyes with the image of his 25-year-old self, but not the image as he left it 10 years previously. No. For etched into the selfie, right there in front of him, are the tide lines of age, wrinkles beginning to show on the forehead, the skin wilting around the aquiline nose, twin creases either side of the rosebud pout of a mouth. Dorian sees, too, a certain sneer, a certain curl of the lip, not present in the original selfie #bitchface, #mean-girl, /judging you. Was it the many times he'd put others down on the basis of their looks? The many ugly comments he'd made on another's ugliness that had written that sneer into the selfie? Did the curl of the lip evidence a life lived in selfishness, selfie stick in hand, and judgment in mind? Dorian swipes off the selfie, a cold sweat of horror breaking out on his preternaturally youthful brow. He tries putting a softening filter on the selfie, hoping to erase those harsh lines. But the app glitches and increases the contrast on the image, only etching those lines deeper into brow and cheek. Like a Narcissus staring into troubled waters, Dorian recoils in disgust from the sight of his own image. Oh, not feeling cute. Bad hair day. He clicks off the app, fingers barely shaking, and runs to the bathroom. Looking into the perfect circle of the stylish chrome-rimmed mirror, home decor ashore, interior design, trendsetter, Dorian scours his face for wrinkles, blemishes, imperfections. But he finds, as always, the same strange youth, the same pure beauty that is synonymous with his reputation in gay bars from the pier to the marina. Hands clammy on the cold porcelain of the sink, Dorian exhales and spits from his perfect mouth the salivation that warns him he will vomit. Leaning over the toilet, he pukes onto the perfect white porcelain, loops of saliva falling from his face like hot tears of shame and disgrace. Dorian commits himself to a life of velvety pleasures and empty aesthetics. He progresses his modeling career at the London fashion shows. Strike, oppose, model life, catwalk. In his spare time, he buys designer handbags in the lanes and showcases his latest outfits in the bars of Kemptown. At night, the selfie haunts his dreams, mouth twisted in hideous grin, cheek disgraced by defects, brow wrecked by wrinkles, a face defaced by imperfections. The years pass in a blur of night spent knocking back shots in bulldog cheers down at happy hour. But still, Dorian's face stays young. He courts a beautiful drag queen, name of Sybil, dreams of the lavish wedding they'll have. In bars, they sip sex on the beach together and rate the other twinks on their looks in loud whispers. Roast me, 2 out of 10. Fugly. In dark bedrooms with drawn curtains, they smoke Tina with hookers and dropouts. At the nudist beach, they work on their tans, but soon Dorian and Sybil are fighting. Conversation withering to ridicule and cheap digs. Picture this. The couple at 2 a.m. on St. James Street, roaring insults and comebacks at each other with beer-soaked breath, like baying stags. "You're a right bitch," Dorian screams. "A nasty, cheap, tranny whore." He flings his pint glass to the gutter and struts off into the night. Picture this. Dorian is 45, and as his age has increased, so too has his reputation for youthful good looks. He launches his own line of face cream, skincare, anti-aging results. He proposes to Sybil. They break it off. They get back together. They break it off again. The night they call off the engagement for the second time, Dorian sits somber at the dressing table in his bedroom. He stares into the vanity mirror, his face flawless, even in the bright white light of the bare bulbs, searching for flaws. Any clue as to why Sybil left him. But he finds, as always, perfection. The selfie haunts his thoughts like an unwelcome ghost. He pulls out his phone and clicks on the photo app. He pulls up the selfie and finds it more hideous than ever. Crow's feet at the corners of the eyes, scoops of black shadow underneath them, a complex network of wrinkles deep cut into the face. And still, that hideous, exaggerated sneer, like the face of a horrible puppet. "It's just a selfie," he says. "It doesn't look like me. I cannot look that bad, surely." Reassuring himself, Dorian decides to take action. Why let a selfie ruin your night? Why let a photo curb your self-esteem? Quickly, before he changes his mind, Dorian clicks on the bin icon. A message flashes up on the screen. Delete photo. He pauses for just a fraction of a second, shaking finger hovering over the button, and presses it. Picture this. Sybil, the next day, hungover and contrite and missing her boyfriend, mounting the stairs to Dorian's flat in her stilettos. Heel clicks echoing in the otherwise silent stairwell. She knocks on the door. Silence. She fumbles in her rhinestoned handbag for the spare key and lets herself in. Inside the flat, everything is in its usual perfect order. Dorian's designer coats hang in the entranceway. A half-drunk bottle of Chablis sits on the marble worktop, illuminated like a yellow jewel in the beam of a kitchen spotlight. The Dyson tower fan blasts out cool air in the lounge. 2,000 watts, but 700 cubic meters per hour. Ultimate cooling technology. It blasts a jet of cold across Sybil's fish-netted legs, like an icy river or a ghost passing through her. Dorian? Silence still. She checks everywhere, and letting herself into the last room, the bedroom, she finds it empty. She pulls back the bed sheets. Nothing. But seeing the door of the walk-in wardrobe ajar, she opens it to find, picture this, Dorian hanging by his neck from the rail. At first, she doesn't recognize him, for the swollen, purple face of the dead man is ugly, carved with deep wrinkles, pocked with blemishes, the lip curled up in a final expression of disdain. By his side, there lies his phone. There were way too many flies for an empty house. Schizophrenia is a bitch, and I don't usually curse when I'm writing. I like the classic style of Stephen Crane and the refined worlds of Oscar Wilde, and I know things have changed a lot since this kind of gentleman went extinct. But still, there is something about correct writing that turns everything into poetry. Even these stories. I continue now. Schizophrenia is a bitch. Medicated or unmedicated. Dealing with not knowing what is real or not can still be challenging day by day. From the happy little bunnies hopping out of an unexistent hole to say hi graciously and brighten your day, to the four-eyed woman whose face was falling rotten into pieces in front of my astonished eyes, while she only wanted to offer my breakfast one autumn morning. Anything can be frightening. I thought I was never going to have the courage to move far from the city, far from the hospitals, from the gentrification, and the everyday influx of strangers. It made me calm to know I could just pop out a card from my pocket that shows my mental condition, and people would help me in the most scary situations. Reality pushed me outside of the city. I found the best house to which I could move. Affordable, 2 stories, old cracking wooden floors, unfinished basement, and a big yard with space to grow your vegetables, your very own lavender plants, with the freedom to sit outside and write while listening to nothing but the chickadees and robins singing. No neighbors, no annoying neighbors, because as much as I liked the activity of the city, living in a 24 floors building could be a tiny bit too noisy sometimes. A 100-year-old house that needed some love. Honestly, for the price I paid, I had all the love in the world to give. I didn't overthink before buying it. I didn't want to get into details, so I put the signature on the paper and bought it as it was. The first night was a nightmare. The mice activity was so high in the basements and between the walls that it looked like they were throwing me a welcoming party. My eyes were wide open, and I kept just thinking, I need a cat. I need a cat. I need to get a cat. I didn't challenge my judgment or how factual the existence of mice in a house this old would be. I could smell the mice, their nests, their filth, their spawns. And if there is something I rarely get in life, it's olfactory illumination, also called phantom smells. I didn't dare tell any of my family members about the nightmare because I had been told many, many times that moving out of the city was not for everyone. I didn't want to worry my mom. She tried to persuade me to move in with her, inviting me to stay more than once, offering me homemade food, and promising me peace and clean laundry. I spent the night the best I could, turning from one side to the other, trying to get comfortable and used to every noise. I woke up the morning after with a horrible headache when I moved the curtains in the bedroom to let the sunlight in. I saw at least 30 flies, scattered, sunbathing, flapping their wings against one of the windows, and I jumped back to my bed in disgust. I had my phone fully charged and used one of my favorite methods to discover if my mind was playing games or not. I took a picture of the flies. You see, when you have schizophrenia, if you take a picture or make a video at the precise moment that you see the craziest things, you can actually check on your phone if what you are seeing is real. The mind evolved to be tricky and a vile traitor sometimes. Still, it didn't evolve as much as not to be tricked by a cell phone camera. So the hallucination you are having, if it's just a mere creation of the mind, will not appear either in the video or in a picture. The flies were there, way too many for a house that had its windows closed for the past few weeks. There was a family there before. I don't think this was normal, even for a country house. It wasn't even summer. The weather didn't look inviting for flies, and my house was not a warm place for them to live happily in. I opened the 4 curtains individually to reveal the flies blackening each window. I sprayed them and saw them fall one by one. I vacuumed the remains and moved to the bathroom for a relaxing bath. Relaxing was something that I wouldn't do for a while. I opened the faucet, and the bubbling sound of dry pipes came first, letting a little string of water fall that looked horribly yellow. By the time my bathtub was full, all I had was pea-colored water that smelled like sulfur, and it made me lose the last drop of hope I had that morning. I walked downstairs to the basement. I had been in a basement twice in my life, and one of those times was when I had to check the new house with the realtor a few weeks before moving. I wouldn't say I liked basements. The swamp smell, the spiders, the spider webs that were abandoned, meaning the spiders are now somewhere else where we can't see them. The mice, their horrible smell, and the furnace, the root of significant nightmares that come from old stories and many, many horror movies that I wish I hadn't seen. I took a gun with me. I know I shouldn't have had one, But my dad, who didn't know better, advised me to take his gun, since being alone in a house can be challenging for a woman. My nearest neighbor was 2 miles away, but so was a police station, so I thought it was an okay idea. This time, I had to use it. It was loaded and ready to shoot some cans outside, in case my days turned more boring. When I reached the bottom of the stairs, I heard noises coming from the water well. Something was struggling to get out. The well was a little bit deep, but still, anyone my size could have gotten out of there. I thought, well, great. Now I will have to shut a wild animal, because there is no way I will let an upset possum or rabid raccoon roam my basement. I cautiously approached the water well. The noise grew louder and more frantic. My heart pounded in my chest as I gripped my gun tightly, ready to defend myself. With each step closer, the sounds became clearer, and I could hear muffled cries for help. I peered into the darkness, straining my eyes to make sense of shapes. And then, as if emerging from my nightmares, there she was, tied, her clothes torn and covered in filth, her hair tangled, wounded on every inch of her body, her mouth shut, her hands firmly fastened. Her teary eyes called for help, but all I could do was just shoot. I pressed the trigger 1 time, 2, and even 3 times, with my eyes shut and my teeth grinding as hard as I could, as she lay there, motionless and calm. I took my phone out of my pocket and did what I should have done before shooting. I took a picture and put myself in the frame, too. The dead body in the background, the dirty well, and me hoping none of it was real. Hoping I wasn't real. I took a picture, and there we were. The flash blinded my eyes, and I saw myself, a newborn killer, staring at the screen. She was still there. Oh, so still. Oh, there were too many flies for an empty house, and without wanting it, I finished someone else's dirty job. The unbecoming of Belinda Blackwell. There are few places Belinda Blackwell likes to lay down to rest more than upon her husband's chest. He hadn't been expecting her. Belinda hadn't been expecting to be home so soon either. What with the unpredictability of her father's illness, demanding open schedules from his children, someone on call at all times, lest the old man die without one of them there to hold his hand. When Oscar had come to join them a week early, something about a case closing timely and a stiffening in his shoulders. When Belinda inquired about her sister-in-law, she pounced on the opportunity to bid her brother and father adieu and return early to the husband she so desperately missed. Finding Etienne still tangled in their bed covers, she had stripped down to her chemise and crawled atop him slowly. He had thrashed hard upon stirring and finding her there, his eyes foggy with confusion and fright. But she had kissed his face and rubbed his arms, whispering, "It's me. It's only me," until he relaxed back into the sheets. Now they rest quietly, teetering on the line between half asleep and half awake, Belinda's ear pressed to Etienne's chest to hear the steady thump, thump, thump of his heart. "Well, I'm glad Oscar will be with him," Etienne says appeasingly, having listened in silence to her stories from London. I think it will do him as much good as father. He seemed like he could use some time away." "Away from what?" "I'm not sure." Belinda plays with a loose thread on Etienne's nightshirt. "I feel bad saying away from his wife, but all signs point to it being the truth. He seemed uncomfortable when I brought her up, but he wouldn't tell me anything specific." Etienne's hand tightens where it rests on the nape of her neck. "Then I hope that time will serve them both well." "I do too." She tilts her head to observe the strong profile of her husband's nose. "And you?" she teases. "Has time away from me served you well? All I managed to accomplish was missing my wife." He tucks his chin to look down at her. "Though I have been doing some research in your absence." "Yes, I've noticed." The entire walk to their chambers was an obstacle course of books and journals on every tabletop and cast aside in the middle of the hallway, like he had thrown them down as he was walking. And before that, there was the cook coming to greet her in the foyer with concerns of her husband's increasingly strange demands while Belinda was away. His supposed need for rabbit hearts and pitchers of salt water, bunches of fresh rosemary left to dry on the windowsill for exactly 36 hours, and demands of her and the housemaid to not disturb him when his doors are closed. Certain tasks he'd undertaken where it was vital he not be interrupted. For the sake of goodwill, she gave them both the rest of the morning off. Belinda knows of her husband's beliefs, glimpses into a world of ritual and wardship, studies of augury and communion and necromancy that he prefers she not get too close to. Etienne shifts underneath her, and she reads discomfort in his movements. She strokes a hand down his cheek, so he knows not to be ashamed of it all on her behalf. What has prompted it? Have I come to see you while I was gone? He's told her, too, of the spirit that haunts him, the one that looks just like her, that follows him around the house and watches him from doorways and windows and stares at him unblinking, stares at him like he's done something unforgivable. Belinda has never seen herself, and Etienne claims the spirit has never appeared while she's in the house. She fretted for days over having to leave him when word of her father's illness arrived, knowing what it might invite back into Etienne's life. But there was no getting around the trip. And besides, Etienne had sworn his confidence that that time was behind them. It would appear that he'd spoken too soon. His eyebrows tick up at the middle, like he's attempting to contain his emotion. "I thought it was over," he whispers. "It's been so long. I feel like a fool, letting my guard down as I have been." A deep ache swells behind Belinda's ribcage. She squeezes Etienne tighter. "You've been happy. It's not foolish to hope. What have you found?" "There is a ritual, one for banishment. I have been completing the prerequisite steps over the past week." "Oh?" Belinda struggles to understand. "Yes. There is only one step left to do. It won't be easy." His fingers flex against her back, a signal that he is thinking hard. He seems to choose his words carefully. "The act won't be physically challenging, but I fear the toll it will have on my heart and constitution." Belinda frowns. "It sounds taxing. Are you sure this is the only way?" She considers, not for the first time, bringing up the possibility of relocation, abandoning this home that torments him, so in favor of a fresh start, a life away from paranoia and body doubles. She can't see. Before she can muster up the right words, he's saying, "It will be worth it. I want to do it. I want my Belinda to be the only Belinda in my life." She smothers a grin against the column of his throat. "I'd quite like that as well." Etienne is quiet for a long moment before speaking again. "I won't pretend it isn't terrible, but it is necessary, too. I want my wife to have a good life, and I need to be better to give one to her. I need to be rid of this." A strong rush of affection surges through Belinda. Oh, she loves this man, something awful. She'd follow him into hell. "Then you will be brave, and you will be successful." She rises and falls with the depth of Etienne's answering sigh. "You sound so much like her," he mutters. "Like who?" she asks. "Like Belinda." Belinda's thumb falters where it was rubbing a soothing path along his collarbone. "What?" A giggle bubbles out of her, confusion mingling with sleepy amusement. "It's uncanny. You've never been this good before." He doesn't seem to register her stiffening, or he does, and ignores it. "You've never come to me like this, lay upon me like this. You must know what I'm going to do." "Etienne, it won't work." Etienne raises his voice, speaking over her. "I won't let it." Belinda lifts her head to look her husband in the eyes. A coldness cracks through her when she sees the resolution in his face. "Etienne, I don't..." Her voice breaks off into a scared whisper. "It's me." He shakes his head. "My wife knows me better than this. She tells me when to expect her. You've misjudged. I know you're not really her this time." Belinda curses her attempt at being romantic. He thinks she's haunting him, not surprising him. She's never been so near him when he's in the middle of one of these supposed spectral visits. It's sobering. It's frightening. She tries to sit up and grunts when Etienne uses his hand on her neck to ease her back down again. His hold is strong, not enough to hurt, but in her shock, she goes easy. Etienne's mouth is at her ear. My wife is not to be home for a few days yet. By then, all of this will be dealt with and done. It will be like it never happened. She won't have any part of it. She will not have such a weak, nervous husband. His voice shakes. I will keep her safe. It's all the warning Belinda gets before the knife is plunged into her back. She jerks violently. Pain whips through her, fast and brutal. It's like someone has dumped a full basin of water over her. No, the sensation is real, and it's not water. It's blood, hot and wet and slick and spreading fast, sticking her chemise to her skin. She frantically shoves herself up, grappling for a place on her back she can't reach, too low for the arm she stretches over her shoulder, too high for the one she stretches under. She arches, incapacitated by the pain, her mouth opening and closing like a fish thrown onto rocks, gasping into air that isn't helping her situation, feeling inches from death. The knife digs into her shifting skin, or is her skin digging into the knife? The awful, writhing, sawing sensation ripping through her. She's never been stabbed before, but this cannot be normal. Flashes of rabbit hearts and salt come to her. And no, of course this isn't normal. Not by Etienne's design. She hunches, trying to scramble away from the pain. But there's nowhere to go that it doesn't follow. She shoves her face into the pillow beside her husband's stunned face, her hands fisting at the sheets. Etienne grips her hips tight. Belinda, she can only answer with a whimper. She's trembling so hard she can barely open her mouth anymore for how hard her teeth chatter. No. Etienne pushes against her shoulders. She doesn't understand what he wants. She doesn't understand what's happening. Dear God, no. His touch moves to her face, and he wrenches her head back with his hands shoved up into her hair. Belinda. He jams his fingers under her jaw, ignoring her choking, feeling for something. Upon finding it, his face goes white. Belinda. Again, more urgently, wrestling to sit them both upright. Belinda. It's all coming to her in flashes. The horrible red smear on Etienne's cheek. The wetness that's dripping down the back of her legs. The sudden realization that she can't support herself. She slumps against Etienne. Dazedly, she thinks of her parents, of all the men they'd wanted her to marry. A parade of surgeons and doctors with their deep pockets and upturned noses. Professionals who would know what to do with a gaping wound. Professionals she had rejected for the love of a poet her poet, who had nothing to offer but a quiet life and endless adoration. Etienne cradles her against him, rocking them back and forth. He's sobbing. "Why are you here? You weren't supposed to be here. I thought you were the specter. Please believe me. Oh God, please forgive me." He sounds wrecked. Belinda wants to comfort him, but she can't pick her head up. Then darkness clouds her vision, and she can't do anything at all anymore. Belinda blinks awake. The ground is uncomfortable beneath her back. What is she doing on the ground? Etienne is kneeling by her side, head in his hands. There's something red all over his hands. Belinda pushes herself up, reaching out to touch Etienne's knee. He jolts at the barest brush of her fingers. "Belinda." He sounds relieved. He yanks her forward, and she goes crashing against his chest. Why is his heart beating so fast? That red substance on his hands is getting all over her now, staining her crisp white chemise. Why does it smell so strongly of metal? Her head feels fuzzy. Really? Why is she on the ground? A moment ago, she was laying in bed, gossiping with Etienne about her brother's marriage. Did she fall out of bed? Did she hit her head? Is that why everything feels so off? "I'm sorry," she murmurs slowly. "I'm not sure what happened. Did I fall? You..." Etienne is shaking. She must have really scared him. "I fixed it. It's all right." "Fixed what? How long was I out?" "It doesn't matter. You're all right. It's all right now." Belinda frowns. "Etienne, is my head bleeding?" He winces. "What? Why are you asking me that?" "Blood." She can't think of anything else to say. She should get a cloth, something to clean him with. She pushes away from him, bracing against the edge of the mattress to stand. Her hand sinks into something cold and wet. Before she can search for the source of it, Etienne pitches forward, grabbing her by the cheeks and pulling her to look back at him. It makes her head spin. "Don't look," he says. He sounds gravely serious. Belinda's heart stutters. "What?" "Don't look," like a petulant child. Belinda can't stop herself. She's wriggling out of his grip before he can stop her again, ignoring his cry, turning to look at herself, laying dead in a mess of blood on the bed. Herself on the bed. Blood. All air leaves her. She jerks to her feet, stumbling backwards. She can't look away. She's just laying there, her hair stuck to her forehead and her chemise soaked through with red. Her eyes are still open. Behind her, Etienne remains on the ground. His voice is low, thick with grief. "There was an accident. I did what I had to fix it." "What?" Her voice sounds like it's coming from miles away. She doesn't even know what to ask. She can't look away. "I didn't know if it would work. I had only read about the ritual. I've never attempted it. But the journals said I could comb through time and bring something back with me. He looks up. I brought you. Belinda's stomach turns. Etienne's face is wet with tears. Where is she? You brought me from the past? From before the accident? Yes. It was the only way. You were already gone. His voice breaks, and he hangs his head. His shoulders are shaking. Belinda looks at him. She looks at herself. But what of the Etienne in the past? Are you the same as him? Our paths have diverged, he says gravely. Well, then, what of that Etienne? Is he all alone now? How must he feel, having just had his wife taken from him? Etienne shudders, his eyes darkening. I know how he feels. For some reason, that's what does Belinda in. Her stomach lurches, and she stumbles to the lavatory, shoving the door closed behind her, before retching into the sink. Nothing comes up. It makes her feel worse. She looks up into the mirror. Yes, that's her face, staring back at her with wide eyes and tangled hair. But yes, that was her face, too, staring back at her from the bed. It feels like dying just to think of it. She can't imagine what dying must really feel like. Can't imagine how anything can be worse than this terror that's seizing her insides. Etienne's voice comes from the other side of the door, muffled and pleading. Please, I didn't want this. All I wanted was you. He nudges at the door, like a dog desperate to get in. She staggers over to open it. Etienne is still on his knees, still on the ground. When the door is open wide enough, he drags himself forward with his fingernails digging into the wood floor. He bends low to kiss her ankles. She closes her eyes tight at the sensation. My love, my life. His tears drip onto her foot. I wish I hadn't done it. I wish I hadn't done it. What did you do? A voice in her head begs her to ask, and somewhere deeper, somewhere darker, somewhere inside her that already knows, somewhere she can't reach, is asking, which part do you regret? Tessa. They bury Belinda in the garden. Belinda watches numbly, while Etienne strips that other her from the bloody chemise, redressing her in something soft and clean. He gathers her hair and fastens it into a braid to keep it off her face. And his touch is so gentle and reverential that this time, when Belinda excuses herself to retch into the sink, she throws up the entire contents of her stomach. Belinda gets dressed herself, tugging on a gown, though her hands shake so hard that Etienne has to help her with the fastenings. She follows behind Etienne and stares at her own face, lax where it rests against her husband's. Their husband's shoulder as he carries her down the stairs and out the back door. Is that what she looks like when she sleeps? They leave the bloody mattress as it is for the housemaid to find. "We'll say you were with child," Etienne had said, not meeting her gaze. "They won't ask questions if they believe you lost something." Etienne is right, as he tends to be. When Belinda retires inside, hours later, the silent vigil over the little upturned patch of dirt beneath her favorite tree becoming too much for her to bear. The housemaid, Miss Clark, is already waiting for her, wringing her hands in the hallway. All it takes is just enough performance of Belinda's averted eyes and a hand pressed to her stomach for Miss Clark's face to drop. She coos sympathetically, fussing over Belinda so tenderly that Belinda is weeping before she can hold herself back. "We buried her in the garden," Belinda croaks. "All by yourselves, ma'am?" Miss Clark asks, sounding surprised. "We couldn't bear to leave her," Belinda says, and now she's telling the truth. Then she tells another. "I don't know what happened." Belinda looks out from their bedchamber, trying to ignore the sharp smell of vinegar and lemon. The bed stripped of its linens behind her, the way the mattress has been flipped. She watches Etienne as the sky goes from blue to orange. Hours pass, and still he remains, bent over the grave of his dead wife, while his wife watches over him. After what feels like an eternity, he rises, stretching his arms. He turns, shielding his eyes against the setting sun, to look back up at the house. Belinda tries not to notice how he flinches when he spots her, feeling like a specter in the window. Dark paranoia. In a small studio apartment on the 4th floor, a cynical young man scratches indifferently at an early birthday present. The man's name is Aaron Newman, a man whom life treats without deference, honor, or success. Waiters bring him cold burgers, and gas station clerks shut doors in his face. On this day before his birthday, he is given a lottery scratch-off that will change not only the way he views the world, but everyone in it. Aaron scratched away at the lottery ticket, scoffing as he did so at the cheapness of such a thoughtless gift. But as the second box read, 500,000 Han, same as the first, he felt his pulse double and thrum with the intensity of an orchestra of bass. He told himself not to get his hopes up, as the disappointment would only sour after that last scratch. But he couldn't help himself. His palms and forehead began to sweat, and he was acutely aware of his eyes beginning to blur. When the third $500,000 revealed itself, Aaron flew from his seat only for his legs to tremble, forcing him back down to the chair. His face expanded into the appearance of a scream, yet no sound escaped him as his throat tightened. He blinked several times and rubbed his eyes as to confirm to himself that this was not an illusion. And the numbers on the small slip remained the same. Aaron had won the jackpot. And it was all thanks to this apathetic, lazy idea of a birthday present. He decided he wasn't going to cash it right away. He didn't want to give the gifter the satisfaction of knowing they had given him such an exuberant gift. Aaron knew that they would claim credit as if they somehow knew they were giving him a winning ticket, and would expect Aaron to share his money. No, that simply wouldn't do. He'd have to play it cool and act casual with his life, as if nothing happened. If the friend would ask about the ticket, he would say he won 20, which didn't feel like much of a lie to Aaron. Anyway, there was 500,000 after all. Aaron gave himself some time in his lonely apartment to collect himself and recenter his nerves. After several moments of balancing his breath and matting away the nervous sweats, he put on his shoes and left to go to the grocery store to have a personal celebration of his newfound, unsuspected success. Once in his car, Aaron drove down Main Street on his way to his town's small grocery store, the Piggly Wiggly, affectionately known as the Pig to locals. Realizing he's still jittery from his winnings, he sets his car on cruise control to keep a consistent, casual speed down the street. As he cruises, a black sedan rolls past a stop sign on his right and pulls in front of him, forcing Aaron to slam on his brakes. The car behind Aaron blares their horn angrily at them and swerves past him, continuing down the road as if this was all Aaron's fault. Aaron slams his fist on the horn as he glares at the black sedan. He can just make out a silhouette on the driver's side window. The shaded head appeared to be staring at him, though for what reason, Aaron could not say. "What the hell?" Aaron yells out at the dark car, which is idled halfway between two streets. Finally, it completed its turn and moderately accelerated down Main. Aaron muttered angrily under his breath as he moved on, eventually turning into the small parking lot of the Pig. The unfortunately meager lot was packed full of vehicles as Aaron weaved up and down the lanes. At last, he found an open space, and as he turned the wheel to park, a faded blue truck rushed in, nearly scraping Aaron's front bumper as it did so. Aaron laid his palm against the horn, blaring his siren. Heads of pedestrians walking amongst the cars swiveled to glower at him, and the driver of the blue truck scowled at him as they raised their middle finger. Aaron's lower lip trembled, and his eyebrow twitched. He eventually gave up and parked along the curb at the front of the store. He saw others do it all the time, and figured just this once he would too. What's the worst that can happen? Now in the store, Aaron goes to the refrigerated meat section. He knows on most days he wouldn't even dream of buying himself a steak, as he could barely live on the salary he made. But the money he had set aside for rent was chump change compared to what's going to be hitting his bank later. Now was the time to splurge. He picks up a decently sized New York strip, then moves towards the beer. As he moved down the aisles among the other shoppers, Aaron noticed that several of them seemed to be looking at him with disdain out of the corner of their eyes. He saw a mother place her hand on the shoulders of her kid, quickly turning them away. Aaron wondered if he had something on his face and offhandedly rubbed at his cheeks. Once in the alcohol section, Aaron inspected the beer selection. At first, he wondered if such an occasion would call for wine, but he didn't really care for the stuff. He settled on a 12 case of Blue Moon. He didn't know if he was going to drink all of them in one night, but wouldn't fault himself if he did. At the checkout, the cashier was loudly and sloppily chewing her gum. She never looked Aaron in the eyes, though did come close when she looked at his nose when she told him his total charge. Aaron couldn't say for sure why, but he felt like this cashier was harshly judging him in her mind. Let her judge. Aaron knew better. Aaron made it back to his apartment with little complication. The steak was overcooked, but the beers, all 12 of them, hit the spot nicely. He had music blasting as he danced awkwardly alone in the studio. With a break in the music, Aaron thought he heard something bang. He paused the music and stood, swaying, as he listened intently for sound. Bang! It was the window. Aaron rushed to the window, threw open the curtains, and looked outside to see 2 kids running across the parking lot in the dark, away from him. "You dipshits!" Aaron yelled. "Come try that again and see what happens." He moved to slam the window shut, and after blinking several times, he realized he never opened it in the first place. Now, with the mood killed, he slumped down on his couch with an aggravated sigh as he sat in desolate silence. Now he thought he could hear whispering, which sounded like they were being spoken just out of view of the corner of his eye. His head swiveled from side to side, yet he saw no one. Though no one could be seen, the whispers and hushed voices continued. They were malevolent, invasive, and bitter. He heard them snicker as if they were sharing secrets that he wasn't allowed in on. He paced around his apartment room, looking under the couch and behind furniture, even going so far as to lift the pillows on his couch, but could not find the whisperers. An unsettling feeling rose in Aaron's stomach, and he knew it wasn't just the beer. He was reminded of all the rude, hateful people from earlier today. The people who, if they weren't casting malignant glowers, seemed as if they wanted to get him hurt or killed. That's when it hit him. They know. He doesn't know who they are or how they found out, but they know about his uncashed lottery ticket, and they're out to get his money. Fervently, he spun around, brushing off the aggressive quake to his head as he did so, and charged at the small coffee table in front of the couch where he left the scratch-off. He swiped it up and held it, clutched it against his chest. His pallid, sweaty face peered over his shoulder. The whispers were growing louder. No, closer, as he shielded his treasure. He slowly backed away from the table until he broke into a sprint across the room and into the closet. He slammed the door and collapsed on the floor. There he sat for the rest of the night until after an unknowable amount of time had passed, and he finally fell asleep. The next day, his birthday, Aaron's head felt like it was being pounded in with a hammer, wrapped up by thin lemon slices. He stood up from his corner in the closet with an aching back and walked into the main room of his apartment. He looked at his phone and had somehow slept until almost noon and felt grateful he didn't have to go to work that day. He moved to the kitchen and with trembling hands, he poured himself a glass of water and gulped it down. He refilled and did this 2 more times before shoving his face in his hands. He usually doesn't remember nights of heavy drinking, but he can recall last night clear as a bell. He knows that people are out to hurt him, possibly even kill him, to get their hands on his money. So he decides he is going to cash in this ticket ASAP and secure his money in the bank. Still wearing yesterday's clothes, he hastily puts on his crumbling sneakers, allowing himself to reverie on the classy new shoes he'll replace these with. He shoved the ticket in his pocket and rushed out the door towards the stairs, neglecting to even lock his door on the way out. Driving down his street, he noticed 2 girls standing on the sidewalk, and he noticed them cover their mouths and laugh. And he swears he saw their eyes dart over at his old car. He scowled at them as he drove past. Further down the road, there was a fallen tree that blocked most of his lane. He didn't see anyone from the other direction, but in light of everything, he had started to get nervous. With sweaty palms, he turns the wheel to move around the fallen tree. No one jumped out to meet him with this inconvenience, but he could see the verdure around him, rustling with ambushers, waiting for the exact right moment. With the stirring vegetation around him, the violent chorus of whispers around him began again. They were louder and somewhat clearer than before. He can make out some of their plans to string him up, beating him senseless. The phrase, "catch him, kill him," echoing in his ears. His eyes are blurring as dime-sized droplets of sweat rush down his forehead and flood his eyes. His hands have gone far from clammy, as now he struggles to maintain a grip on the steering wheel. He uses his forearm to wipe away his eyes, only in time to see a shadow standing in the middle of the road. He screams as he swerves, driving off the side of the road and crashing into a tree. He awoke, unsure of how much time had passed, but saw that the sun had already started to drop. He blinks and squints as the sensation of something cooling slowly runs down the side of his face. He reaches up to touch it, and his hand comes back red. Stumbling out of the car, he hears a woman call out, "He's awake! He's getting out of the car." Aaron turns his head to see a woman and a man standing next to their vehicle, parked on the side of the road. He looks to the tinted back windows and sees more of the shadowy figures, their heads turned to look at him. He gasps and looks back to the woman who cried out. Both she and the man carry twisted expressions of tentative eagerness. He knows they believe their time has come to take him, but he'd sooner go on his own terms before he lets them. He runs back in the direction of home, tearing down the street, lightheaded as he was, unsure of how much blood he'd already lost. He knew he just only had to get back home, and he'd be safe. He didn't see those two girls with their mischievous giggles from earlier, but he knew that they couldn't be far. There are several pairs of running footsteps behind him. He can sense them, though he cannot hear them through the tremendous pounding of his hard-pressed heart. The whispers are shouting now, eager and hungry, their hands reaching towards him with greedy claws. He reached his apartment building and dove into the elevator. He slams his fist onto the button for the 4th floor. As the lift slowly rose, the lights flickered and the walls rattled. Aaron raised his hands and clutched his head as the bitter pounding of his attackers assailed the outside of the elevator. The elevator doors open, and Aaron knows that as soon as he steps over the breach between the lift and the apartment floor, a hand should shoot up and grasp his ankle, keeping him immobile until the doors close and crush him. He jumps over it and runs down the hallway until he sees his apartment. Room's door is left ajar, barely an inch, but open nonetheless. Aaron stood paralyzed. Horror tingled up his body like thousands of avid insects. He knows he has to make a choice. Wait for them to reach him out here, or face them off in there. He likes his chances in there better, if only slightly. He runs into the dark room and slams the door behind him. Immediately, he sees the shadows huddled against the walls. They begin their devious whispering. "Here he is," they say. "Get ready." He can't take it. He thought he could, but he can't take it. Not anymore, and never again. With tears streaming down his face, Aaron cries out, "You'll never take me!" With a blood-curdling scream, he begins to run again. The lights turn on. The trap is about to be sprung, and Aaron Newman jumps at the window and plunges 4 stories down to the concrete below. Emma Newman mother of Aaron Newton, shrieks. Friends and family who had been hiding in the dark to surprise Aaron on his birthday all crowd around the shattered window and look down. No one would ever be able to understand what spurred on this paranoia that led to Aaron's death, as all that was found on his person would be his wallet, his old crumbling sneakers, and a fake lottery ticket given as a gag. But that is perhaps the worst part of paranoia. The unknowing, a dark paranoia. The mind's twisted masterpiece, where shadows dance and conspiracies unite to throw a party that only the troubled can attend.